Welcome back to Greater Bridgewater. I'm your host, Miles Hager, and in this episode, we continue our candidate conversations. We have been speaking with Mary Connaughton. She's a candidate for state auditor on this November 2nd's election and on the ballot. Mary, we were talking about the role of the state auditor in the first half of the show, and why don't we just finish up and then segue to a few statewide issues.
Sure.
How important is it to be independent in the role of the state auditor?
That is so important. It's of the utmost importance because the power of the auditor really rests in the power of the people. And the people need to believe that the auditor is neutral, impartial on issues, and is only going to tell it like it is. The auditor is the people's eyes on Beacon Hill and must communicate with the people. So independence is really important. People say, well, you're a Republican, the other candidate's a Democrat. What happens if one is conducting audits and the governor, it happens to be the same party? And that's why it's such an important issue. A couple of things that I'm doing so people understand that I am independent. As I said earlier, as a CPA, I have to be independent. My license is on it. But I also served on the Turnpike Board with two chairs that were Republican, one appointed by Governor Jane Swift, one appointed by Governor Mitt Romney, and two appointed by Governor Deval Patrick. Throughout my term on the board, all 4 years, I was very independent. A quick Google search will show that regardless of who was the chair, I was independent. And so my track record proves it. And I think it's extremely important. One other thing that I'm doing with my campaign is I'm not accepting money from special interest groups. I think it's absolutely wrong for an auditor candidate to do that because that means that the auditor already bought into a particular philosophy. So I'm not doing it. I'm sure it's cost me some endorsements. I'm sure it's cost me some money because you need money to fund a campaign. But to me, to be in that office, independence is key and the people have to buy into that. So I'm not doing that. I know my opponent has taken thousands of dollars already in special interest money. I just don't think that's right.
Now, moving towards this, the November 2nd election, how do you feel the passion of this year's election has changed from in years past?
Oh, it has changed enormously. People are getting off the couch and they're getting into action, whether it's standing out with lawn signs or yard signs or getting bumper stickers on their car. Or so many people have come up to my headquarters and say, I've never volunteered on a campaign before, but this is the time I want to do it because I believe we can make a difference. And I believe a lot of it goes back to the January 19th election with Scott Brown. And people saw, hey, what's the chance of Scott Brown getting elected? A couple months before the election, people didn't think it was a reality or that their vote mattered or their action mattered. But they got involved, and it was an enormous wave. So people saw that getting involved makes a difference. And across the board, I've shaken hands across the state for a year now. And I'm hoping whoever shakes the most hands wins, and if that's the case, I have it locked. But in doing so, I got a real good sense of the mood of the public, and they're very concerned, and they want to get involved, and this is the year to do it.
Now, do you feel that, regarding the Scott Brown election especially, do you think Scott won because the people were fed up, or was it maybe negative campaigning and a lot of phone calls that had done it?
I think it was the person that did that. They believed in Scott Brown, and he was able to rally support at the grassroots level, and from the grassroots, he was able to rise up through that. And the grassroots are key because the grassroots are the people that really are impacted, and getting them on your side makes all the difference. And I think that really started to propel Scott Brown up through to victory.
Now, speaking of impact, how big of an impact do you think the Tea Party or the members of the Tea Party have on this year's coming election?
Oh, I think the Tea Party is significant. I think it's growing. I think there's more and more people that just have never been involved in politics that are going to Tea Party meetings. There have been numerous Tea Party candidate forums, and they invite members from all the parties, Democrat and Republican, to attend. And I think it's good. It shows that the people really want to get involved. And I think that it will have an impact in terms of grassroots support, in terms of volunteers for campaigns. I mean, it's a different world out there. And the level of engagement across the board is extremely high. And that's good. It's good for democracy. More people are letting their voice be heard.
Now, on the November 2nd ballot, there is a question that, if approved, would drop the state sales tax from 6.25% to 3%. What are your thoughts on this question, and are you in favor or against it?
I think it goes too far. I think it would take about $2.5 billion out of the state budget. And I don't think my feeling is that having served on the Turnpike Board and seeing what happens, I fear that they'll raise tolls, fares, and fees and cut local aid. And I know how important local aid is to communities. And I know Framingham, the cuts in local aids have been devastating. And that's my concern, that it goes too far. 5% might be more likely, but 3% goes too far.
Now, with the 3%, if approved, there's been talk that 1.9 billion could come of that 2.5 that could be lost if they cut illegal immigrant benefits. Is that true, or is that more of a statement that hasn't really been looked into?
I have never seen that study. I would certainly like to see that study. I mean, I think getting more information out and determining whether it's valid before any policymaker should make a decision, they need to know that they have accurate, reliable data on which to base their decision. And I think that's why the auditor's office is so important, because the auditor being objective, not being influenced by special interest groups, can actually get to the bottom of the numbers, and then people will buy into the numbers. But just so often on Beacon Hill, like when they were passing legislation to consolidate transportation in Massachusetts, they said it's going to save us $6.5 billion over 20 years. And who was looking at that number? I asked for a projected cash flow statement, never got it. And I think the auditor can actually look at the numbers and say, all right, to save $6.5 billion, the state needs to do A, B, C, D, and E. But that doesn't happen right now. And numbers are just thrown around on Beacon Hill like peanut shells at Fenway Park. We need to get more information. And so getting a projected cash flow for any major initiative, I think, is critical.
I will give you the floor for a few minutes to get the votes of the people here on the South Shore. Democrat, Independent, Republican. How do you have the floor? Why don't you state why people should vote for you on November 2nd?
Sure. As the only certified public accountant and experienced auditor in the race, I think that's extremely important. You need to be an attorney to be the Attorney General. To me, it makes sense to elect an auditor, an experienced certified public accountant, as our state auditor. I'm running on a platform of transparency and accountability in government. I think that we could do a lot better along those lines. You know, I was a teacher at Framingham State. I was chief financial officer of the state lottery. I worked for years in the private sector at Ernst & Young, another accounting firm, and another accounting firm. And I think it makes sense to elect someone that has a good blend of private sector and public sector experience to really get the job done, to stand up for the people. And most importantly, I have the track record of doing so. The Boston Globe, in endorsing me for the primary, said I was highly qualified for the job. The Boston Herald said that I was a voice of reason and tireless fighter on the Turnpike Board. So I have the track record of doing it. I have the experience to do it. And I think this job is the second most important position in state government. And it's going to require someone that can hit the ground running, not have on-the-job training at the taxpayer's expense. I think I could do a great job, and I'm asking you to visit maryforauditor.com.
Great. Now, 2 minutes final and closing. You just mentioned the website. Where can people find more about the campaign? The
Sure.
website, how can they meet you
Sure.
and find out more about yourself?
Well, the website also has events where I will be at, so you can see and go to one of my events and go to a meet and greet and learn more about me. And again, going to maryforauditor.com would get you there. We also have our campaign headquarters in Framingham, and we're opening up an area in Pembroke, so people can go there and volunteer or to learn more about the campaign. So a lot of good is going on, and it's going to take the people to really take a look at who the candidates are and who they think can best perform this very important function. And I call my headquarters. The number is on the website.
Great. Now, a few important dates coming up. Absentee ballots are available for anyone who may not be able to get out the day of the election. Those are available at your local town hall or city hall, which is great. The election is November 2nd, and also the final day to register to vote is October 13th. So a great platform and a great group of candidates, especially in this year's election. So Mary Connaughton, guest on this episode of Greater Bridgewater in our candidate conversations. You can look for Mary's name on the November 2nd ballot under the state auditor's race. And Mary, we wish you the best of luck, and thank you for joining us on this episode. Another great episode of Greater Bridgewater has come to an end, and we do hope you stay tuned in the next coming weeks leading up to the election, as we will speak with incumbent Congressman Stephen Lynch coming up soon. So do stay tuned for that episode and many more that have been airing right here on East Bridgewater Community Television and other South Shore channels. Thank you for watching.